Hi Stampers, I'm Kathy Hansen and today I'm going to show you how to make this fun little easel card. This easel card uses the Bloom Where You're Planted suite from the Stampin' Up! 2021-2022 annual catalog. And this is what it looks like on the front before you open it. Let's move this out of the way. And then when you open it, you see more plants because yes, I got a little carried away with the plants. And then when you flip these two tabs up and fold this down, you have a whole patio full of plants. And you can see that's an easel card where it stands up and you can enjoy that on your desk or your table or your windowsill. For me, it's particularly great because I do not have a green thumb in any stretch of the imagination, so this is how I enjoy my plants, on paper. So let's get started and I'll show you how I made it. A lot of pieces parts for this card, but it's not too daunting. Most of these pieces I was able to cut out of the Bloom Where You're Planted designer series paper. All of these little flower shapes, I was able to take a 12 by 12 piece of designer paper, put it into my scan and cut these all out. So that made it very simple to complete this card. So what we're going to do first is start on the outside, on the very front piece. And for the front piece, this is the base for the front, and it's actually going to fit down onto the front of the card to create the easel flap. So let's create that first. This piece is 5.5 by 4.25 inches, and you don't need to worry about writing down measurements because all of the measurements are on my blog, kathyscraftroom.blogspot.com. And if you search to Bloom Where You're Planted, it will bring you to the instructions. Well, there's no instructions there because these are the instructions, but it will give you all the measurements for this card. So the first thing I'm going to do is put this piece of cinnamon cider cardstock onto the evening evergreen. And this piece is 5.25 inches by 4 inches. And then this piece is also from the Bloom Where You're Planted designer series paper. It's got this beautiful jungle looking design on the other side, but we're going to use the white brick wall side because we want this to look like your patio where you have this plethora of plants. So that's just going to go right over the cinnamon cider paper. Okay, the next thing I'm going to use is this piece of paper. What is it called? It's called paper Lattice, and this also is in the new catalog, and it's part of this suite. And it's kind of hard to tell in this light, but on one side it looks like it's crumb cake, a craft color, and on the other side, I think that's this side, and then on this side it's a little bit darker and it almost looks like it has a dark brown edging on it, so it looks like wood, maybe like die cut wood or laser cut wood. But in any event, we're going to put this, and this comes in a package. The sheets that are in the package are 5 inches by 3.75 inches. So what I did is I took one piece, I cut it in half lengthwise, and that's what I'm using to go across the front of the card here. So this is what the full piece would look like. But we're just going to use half of that. So that is going to go right on the front, and I'm going to use my liquid glue for that. Actually, I'm going to try this new pen that I got from a friend of mine. So we're going to try this glue pen. I hear that it never clogs, and it's wonderful, and you know what? It's working great right now. So I'm just putting a little bit in all the corners and in all these bigger solid portions of the design so that it doesn't go falling off the paper anywhere. And then I'm just going to put that kind of close to the center, but maybe slightly closer to the top than the bottom. And that's going to go right across here. Okay, so that's in place. I've got these two extra little pieces that kind of popped up from somewhere. We're not using those. So then what I will do is I have this die cut. This die cut is from the this is the die set that goes with the stamp set. The stamp set is called Plentiful Plants. The die cut is called Perfect Plants, and this little macrame hanger is one of those die cuts. So what I'm going to do with that is assemble. I'm first going to put this flower into a pot, and I'm going to put just a little bit of glue here at the bottom. Guess it works better if I'm on the table. And I'm going to cut a little bit around a few of these leaves because I want to be able to shove it down into the pot, and I also want to be able to fit it in between those hanging portions of the planter. So what I'm going to do is just cover the pot, push this up where I cut those leaves so that it goes right up to the stems, and then you see those leaves. Okay, then I'm going to take the whole thing and I'm going to put it behind the planter, but then I'm going to take some of these leaves and I'm going to kind of push them through, kind of need to fold it up a little bit to get them through there. Push them through so that they appear to be coming around to the front of the planter, like this, or the front of the hanger. So then I'm going to put just a little bit more glue on here. I want to make sure that it's going to stay in there, although I don't think it's going to go anywhere, but I'm just going to put a little glue, oh, maybe right here, put a little bit to hold this planter portion onto it, or the hanger onto it. And then I'm also going to put a little bit under the leaves on this hanging portion here. So a little dot there, a little dot here, but I'm happy to have it kind of hanging loose because it gives it a 3D effect on the front of the card. So here's what you have. And then I'm going to put just a little bit of this liquid glue around the hanging part there so that that stays down, and then I'm just going to use my regular adhesive to go up the center of it, and then that will hold the whole thing in place. And that's going to go pretty close to the edge over here and onto the wall. So this is what you have. And you can see these leaves just look like they're growing right out of the planter, out of the pot, into the air, which I love. Okay, then, you know, you can't really have a planter just hanging on the wall. There's got to be something that it's hanging on to. So I have these metallic pearls, and I'm going to use the gold ones. These actually come packaged with both gold and silver. And you know what? I have one kind of hanging on. Oh, I have a piece in here that has just a few of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to just put that right in that little spot, and that will make it look like it's hanging on a hook or a nail or something out on your patio wall. The next thing I'm going to do is take this. Now this all comes together. This plant doesn't need to be assembled. This is the way it comes in the package. And I'm going to put that just directly down onto the paper. Oh, somewhere over here, I think. Kind of toward the edge. Okay, so we have that. Again, it looks like it's just hanging in the air, which we really don't want. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to take this little piece of cinnamon cider paper, and this paper is left over from what we're putting on the inside. I embossed it with the brick and mortar embossing folder, So it kind of has a 3D effect, and it looks like a little bit of different color brick wall coming out. And I'm going to take just a tiny little Stampin' Dimensional, and I'm going to even cut that in half and put that on the back, a little here, a little here, and then I'm going to put that underneath the planter so it appears to be sitting on an outcropping from the wall. And this little piece is like it's like 1 1/4 inches by 1/4 inch. It's just a little scrap of paper to make it look like a little bit of the wall. Okay, then we have one more plant. And this one, okay, I know you're going to say, you know, succulents don't go in pots with other plants, but in my world they do. Did I mention I don't have a green thumb? So for this, I'm going to put a little adhesive right here on the back of this flower pot, and I'm going to plant my cactus right here. And then I'm going to take whatever this plant might be that truly does not grow with cactus, but it's going to anyway, because. And I'm going to put a little more liquid glue on the back of the cactus and on the pot, and I'm going to just put that right here. And this is really more to balance it out than it is to be true to life, obviously. And then this pot, I'm going to put, you know, I'm not sure that that's the one that goes there. I'm going to set that aside. I think it's actually, you can see these are all the pieces parts that I cut out to go on my card. This is the piece I want right here. These are all the pieces parts from the designer paper that I cut with my Scan and Cut, which I dearly love because it saves me so much time. This one I'm not, am I going to pop this one up? Yes, I am. I'm going to use the larger of the Stampin' Dimensionals, and I am going to pop that up. It looks like I have a few left on this sheet right here. So I'm going to put one here, one right below it, and then one on the bottom. And I want to put this right by the bottom of the card because I want it to, when we set it up in the easel, I want it to appear as though it's sitting on the floor, on the brick floor. So that one I'm just going to put right here at the bottom. Okay, so that's almost the front of the card. We have one more thing to add, and that is a sentiment. So for this, I cut a little piece of paper. The white paper is 2 1/4 by 9/16 of an inch, and that's going to go right on this piece of cinnamon cider, which is a little too long. I cut it at, let's see, I cut it at 2 1/4 by 2 1/2 by 3/4, but it appears to be just a little long, so that's why I have scissors. And I'm just going to cut it off a little bit to make that a little more even. And then again, I'm going to take the Stampin' Dimensionals and I'm going to adhere that to the front of the card for a little greeting. This will go right up here to balance out the top part of it. Kind of, that looks about right to me. So I think we'll put it right there. And this is the front of the card. This is finished now. So what we're going to do now is take the card base, and the card base is 8 1/2 by 5 1/2 inches. It's scored as you normally would at 4 1/4 inches, but then there's an additional score at 2 1/8, and that is halfway between the left edge and the center of the card. Because when you set it up, this is what will create the easel, this fold. So what we're going to do, I have put some score tape on just the bottom panel of this. You don't want any adhesive on the top panel because if you do, the card won't open properly. It'll stick to this top part. So what I'm going to do is remove the backing from this score tape, and we're just going to take this piece that we just made and just very carefully line it up and set it right on top of the card. Okay, so now we have this. It looks weird, but you'll see when we're finished that this actually is what it's supposed to look like. When you get the card, it's folded like this. You'll open it up this way, but then this portion will fold down to create that easel. So now we're going to open it up and do the inside. Okay, on the inside I have this piece of paper is 5¼ inches by 4 inches, and the greeting that I have put on there is also from the Plentiful Plants stamp set, and I stamped that on there with the same color as the background cardstock, which is Evening Evergreen. And I'm just going to go ahead and put that right into the card. This is actually the second time that I've recorded this video. The first one, I spent 33 minutes and 23 seconds recording it, only to find that there was no sound. So after a great deal of anxiety, I was able to find out what, well actually I didn't find out what the problem is. I just turned off my computer and turned it back on again, and guess what? It worked. So this piece of paper is the cinnamon cider again, and it is 5¼ inches long by 1½ inches tall, and this is the piece that I embossed with the brick and mortar embossing folder, and then the extra, I cut off a few extra little pieces for this little shelf right here. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere this right at the bottom of the white cardstock. And hopefully, if I measured it right, it will completely cover. Yep, look at that. It covered the entire width of the cardstock. Okay, now here is where we're going to use this little plant that we put together, the odd plant, odd combination. But first we're going to assemble another little piece that's going to go on the inside. This actually has a little gray line around it because my Scan and Cut was having a little bit of difficulty figuring out exactly where the edge of it was between the edge of this white portion and the background. So I had to do a little outline in pencil. So I'm going to go ahead and erase that outline because that really doesn't belong there. Use my handy dandy, always reliable white pearl eraser. Okay, so now we're ready to take this and assemble it with this piece. This piece is 1 5/8 inches wide by 3 3/4. Is that right? Nope, 3½ inches tall. And I'm going to take this piece. Now remember, we cut that piece on the front. We took this full piece and cut it down the center. This time what I did is I cut it in thirds. So I cut it at this line and at this line to create this little piece to just carry that theme through the card. And what I'm going to do with that, and it is also, I guess it's 3½ inches by 5 inches when it's complete. Make sure I'm using the right side here to match the front. So little bits of glue in these solid areas, and then again just around the corners to make sure that it's gonna stay in place and not fray around those edges. So we'll put that a little bit here and here too, just because I can. Okay. So now we'll put this on here, and that pretty much just fits in there, so that's a good thing. Okay. Alrighty. And then this piece, you can just use regular adhesive for this. What I'm going to do is put that over top of that lattice. And I'm going to line it up with the bottom of the piece so that it's not too long. You can see there are just a couple of rough edges from the scan and cut, so I'm going to trim those down a little bit in these areas. It does such a good job though. There are only a few little adjustments I need to make ever on these, and it saves so much time. It can cut out an entire page of these in the amount of time that it would cut. If I were to cut this one out, for example, here's another design that I've used on one of the cards. It would probably take me about the same amount of time to cut this out by hand as it did to cut out the entire page with scan and cut. So I think it was a wise investment on my part. So this piece is ready to go. Now what we're going to do is make the little stand-up pieces, because if you look at this card from the side, when you have it set up, you will see that there are little spacers in there. These little spacers are to, first of all, make this piece stand up a little better, but also so that it appears to be further out from the wall. This one is 1/4 of an inch wide, and then this one is 3/8 of an inch wide, so it appears to be sitting a little bit further, a little bit closer to you. This one is a little bit closer to the wall, but they're not right on the wall like these other plants. So that's what the purpose of that spacer is. So I'm going to show you how that was made. Those are 2 little pieces of paper just cut out of scrap cardstock, white scrap cardstock. And there is a small one for the little small plant, and that piece is 2 1/4 inches wide. It is 3/4 inches, I'm sorry, 2 1/4 inches long, 3/4 inches wide, and then I scored it vertically at 1/4, 1/2, 1 1/4, and 1 1/2 inches. And then what I'm going to do is fold it back. This one I've already put some score tape on the end of it because we're going to need that to hold it together. So I'm just going to fold back away from each one of those score lines, and then I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to remove this backing from the score tape. I'm going to remove that backing, and I'm going to fold not at this first score line but at the second score line, and I'm going to just lay that down. Here is where I'm going to actually zoom in a little bit on this just so you can see exactly what I'm doing here. Okay, so here is the score line. Here is the 1/4 inch score line. Here is the 1/2 inch score line. It's hard to see this with the lighting. Here is the 1 1/4. Here is the 1 1/2. So what I'm doing is I'm folding down at the second score line, not the first, but the second score line, and then I'm also folding down at the last score line. So when you fold it over, it lines up perfectly with that adhesive, and now you have this magic little, I guess it's a spacer, bracket, whatever you want to call it, and this is going to go on the back of the plant. And this piece, the longest piece, sometimes goes over the edge just barely, just slightly. I don't want that at the bottom of the plant where it might interfere with the motion of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that at the top, and I'm going to get a little more score tape here, and I'm going to put some score tape on the back of the plant, on the back of that box. So like this. And I'm going to put another little piece on there. I love this score tape because it's paper, a paper backing. You don't have to pull out your scissors every time you want to use it. You can just hold it down with your nail and pull it off. So now I'm going to pull the backing off of it. I've got 2 little pieces. I've pretty much solidly covered the back of it. And I'm going to pull the backing off, And then this edge right here, I'm going to fold it down away from that edge. That edge is going to, I'm going to fold it the other way. Okay, and that, the opposite edge is going to go at the bottom of the pot, like so. Oh, look it, I got out a camera. I'm just showing you all kinds of things that aren't even, I'm talking about things that you can't even see. Okay, so here is the little magic rectangle, the little spacer. This is the edge that's going toward the plant, and this is the rough edge. This is the end of the piece of cardstock. Okay, so I'm folding it so that that is right here. This opposite side is going to go against the bottom of the planter. Okay, so you now have it attached to the bottom of the planter, and here's your little box. And that's going to space it out. Now I'm going to take a shorter piece of score tape, and the reason I'm using this score tape is because it has never failed me. It is the strongest stuff. I'm going to fold this back up a little bit, and I'm just going to add on the bottom, the part of that little box that's going to be hitting the card. I'm going to put this piece of score tape. It's nice and sticky right here. And I'm going to put that, I guess I'll zoom back out a little bit now that you've kind of seen what we were doing there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this, I want to position it pretty close to the edge here, and I think I'll put it about here, because that's about right. Okay, this one is ready to go, and look, now we have it all put together. And it kind of does this, which is exactly what we want it to do. Okay, now I'm going to take the larger of the two plants, and I'm going to do the exact same thing with a little bit larger spacer. This one is 4 1/8 inch long, 7/8 inches wide, and then it is scored at 3/8, 3/4, 2 1/4, and 2 5/8 inches. Other than that, it is exactly the same as the other. The way it operates, we're going to just fold away from all those score lines. We will remove the backing, fold it up at the second score line. There's first score line, second score line. We're going to fold there, and then we're going to fold in from the last score line right here and line it up. So now we have the second spacer. And again, we're going to put the score tape on the back to hold it in place on the back of this other panel. So this one is 3/8 inches wide, a little bit wider than the other. As I mentioned, the purpose for that is to make it sit out just a little bit further away from the wall. But you'll see when we line this up on the inside, you kind of need to be careful where we line it up, because we want to make sure that that the backs of each of these two pieces line up so that the panel that's coming down and it's holding it in place will be straight. You'll see. I don't think I said that very well, but you'll understand when we assemble it, I hope. Okay, so now again we're going to put just a little piece of score tape on the bottom. This is this little part right here. Okay, we're putting the score tape right here. Okay, so we're going to remove the backing, and then I have a little ruler here, a little junior achievement ruler. When I was working, before I retired, the company I worked for had volunteers to work with the JA in a Day program, Junior Achievement. So I have these little rulers. Oh, I had it here a minute ago. These little rulers that I use for this because they're just so handy, and they were going to throw these all away. And, you know, I don't like to see anything good thrown away. So, of course, I nabbed them all. So, we're going to just line up this ruler so that we can make sure that the backs of these are in the same place. So here we're just going to line up with the ruler, and then we're going to lay it down and press on it. And look, now we have both of our little, oops, we're kind of out of focus again. Okay, now we have our two little pieces. So right here, they line up with each other. On the back, they line up with, this one's a little bit crooked, but I think that'll still be okay. They line up with each other. And then on the front, this one stands out just a little closer to the front than the other one. Okay, so now when we close the card, here is what the card looks like closed. Now we're going to open it. Allow this piece to fold down with this fold right here, and just tuck it under these two pieces, and there is your card and your ton of greenery. I wish I could grow this kind of greenery, but well, what are you gonna do? If you can't do it, you just kind of create it. And that's what I've done here. I hope you enjoyed this card, and I hope you try making it. Please do visit kathyscraftroom.blogspot.com and search for Bloom Where You're Planted, and it will bring up all of the measurements for all of these pieces parts. Thank you very much for watching.